Please give it up for Alejandro of Latinpresarios.
Thank you. Good morning, Shore Program. How's everybody doing? Excellent. I've been doing this, I think, for the past 2 or 3 years, and I always get energized when I come back to the Shore Program because it's motivating to see people dedicating their Saturday to their business. And we can all agree that starting a business is difficult. Can I get a yes if you think it's challenging? Did you know that you have a better chance of surviving a face-to-face encounter with a bear than making it as a business owner? This is absolutely true. You can look it up. Only 5% of businesses are going to survive the first 5 years. We've all heard that.
Is that documented somewhere? Because that's a key element.
Yeah, 5% of businesses will make it past 5 years. Yet, you have a 70% chance of surviving an encounter with a bear just by playing dead. So that's how hard it is to be a business owner. So hopefully today we'll go over some tools that are going to help you be part of that 5% that survives. And a big component of being able to survive is cash flow, right? We need money to pay for advertising and to pay for our employees and pay for the costs. But another thing that people forget is that a business is not all about getting money. There's an extra step that it's very important, and it's going to help you with your sustainability. And as you can see, we're going to talk about the making of an internet warrior today. And for those of you who don't know what that is, I'm sure you've been maybe browsing through Facebook, Instagram, or any of these social media channels, and you see suddenly that there's a thread of about 100 messages, and people are just going back and forth. Maybe it's about a basketball team or a baseball team. Are they good? Are they not good? Or maybe it's a brand, Nike versus Adidas, or Samsung versus Apple. And they go on and on and on about the benefits, and this screen is better, and they have this technology. And nobody paid them to do that. They're doing it because they're passionate about that brand or that product or that team. And it's because that team or that brand probably has given value to them somehow. Either you get super excited when your team wins, or you feel super proud when you wear your Nikes or your Jordan versus all the other brands. So it's important that we keep in mind that that's the ultimate goal. Imagine if your business was able to create customers as loyal as the Apple customers, that they go in line in the mornings just to get the new phone. They go in line to give the company money. Imagine if you have clients like that. So yes, today we're going to talk about sales and marketing and the sales funnel, but as you can see, I add 2 steps to the sales funnel because most people talk about awareness, evaluation, and purchase, and yes, those are the main steps. But I had a couple of 2 that we're going to talk about today. One, it's the step from unknown to awareness, because as we'll see, there's different journeys depending on the product or services that you're selling. And then the other step is that from purchase to internet warrior, which is going to be our ultimate goal. But before we go into those steps, I want to share with you some key terms that are going to help you plan the funnel for your business. And these are the customer lifetime value and the cost of acquisition. And I'm going to share with you a story so it's easier to understand. And I'm not going to name brands because I don't like to talk trash about companies, but I've been buying a certain brand of car, a certain made of car for the past 2 or 3 cars that I've had. And since I moved to Houston 5 years ago, I always take my car to the dealer. And that's about 5 years. So I go to the dealer, I'm super OCD about, as you can see from the PowerPoints, and order and keeping things clean. So I always even clean inside the hood, and I know where all the parts are. So I take my car to the dealer, they do their thing, give it back to me, they recommend some repairs. They said, hey, you need to change your battery. If you want to do it here, it's about $500. And I'm like, $500? I can do that myself. It's $100 and it's just a couple of cables. So I say thank you, no thank you, I'll do it myself. So I get out of there, go to one of these other places that you can do it for $100, $150. And when I open the hood, I notice that there's a little part, like a cap missing from one of the areas. And I'm like, That's weird. I know that was there before. So I change the part and I go back to the dealer, and I don't go there to pick a fight. I just go there to ask some questions. Like, hey, maybe the part is somewhere lying in the garage. Maybe they forgot to put it. Can you check if it's there somewhere? And they right away, they get defensive. Well, we don't know, because those parts, sometimes they fall. And it's just, we check over 100 parts, so we cannot know. And I'm asking, well, you're the dealer, right? Like, this is the make of the car. I bring it here because I want to keep my car as close as original. So long story short, we go back and forth. They start getting super aggressive, and then they say, well, we got the part if you want it. It's $13. And I'm like, are you going to really charge me for the part? Long story short, they put the part, I leave, and I guarantee that I'm not going to buy that make when I buy my next car. Do you know how much money that company lost because of $13? So it's important that we know those. If anybody in that dealership knew those two variables, cost of acquisition and lifetime value, they would have known that I've already given that company a lot of money, and I was going to give them way more money, and $13 was not worth it. They should have seen the part, right in their head, oh, that's a $13 part. Imagine if they don't tell me, and they say, you know what, Mr. Sanoja, don't worry, we got it for you. Here's one, and here's an extra one, so if that falls, you get an extra one. How would I feel? I will be talking about that brand all day and saying how amazing they are, not knowing that it was just $13. So it's important as we go through the funnel, you have to have those numbers. And sometimes it's hard because we cannot tell for sure, but you have to at least estimate it. So for cost of acquisition, it can get complicated, but it's all the money that you're spending to acquire a customer. It might be an event that you sponsor. Let's say if you sponsor an event and you get clients from those events, well, it's just the cost of the event. If you pay ads on social media and the click is $1 and every 100 clicks you get one client, then that's your cost of acquisition, $100, right? And then on the other hand, the lifetime value, it's also sometimes difficult to calculate, but you can do it by calculating the average purchase that you get per client, multiplied by the average time the client stays with you. So, for example, let's say you have a shoe store and you have a client that bought $10, you have a client that bought $20 in shoes, and you have another client that bought $30 in shoes. Well, the average of those is 20, right? You got 60 divided by 3. So on the average, a client that comes to your shoe store purchases for $20. And now let's say that client 1 bought one shoe from you 1 year and then they disappear because they didn't like it. Client 2 has been buying shoes for the past 4 years every year, and client 3 has been buying for the past 10 years, they buy every year. So you have 10, 4, and 5, 15 total years, you divide by 3. On the average, clients stay with you for 5 years, right? So if we multiply 5 years times the $20 that's your average purchase, we can say that you get on the average $100 per client. Any person that buys a shoe, even if it's the first shoe and it's just $10 or $20, you can say that on the average they're going to spend $100 with you. So now with that number in mind, you can have a better idea of how much you're willing to spend to get a client, right? Because if you know you're making $100, maybe you can pay $20. You can say, hey, $20 off. Or you can even say your first shoe is free, because you know that they're going to come back on the average, right? So it's important that you know these numbers as we go through this. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, it's easy for you to talk about this and do these numbers because you clearly know what you're talking about. Well, what about me and my business? And I'm having a hard time just getting one client, and you're here telling me that I should give product for free. Well, it wasn't always this case. I moved to Houston 5 years ago, and I just having a regular conversation in English was difficult for me. And I also was not a good student. In Venezuela, I almost dropped out of college. I didn't like studying at all. But when I moved to the United States, I didn't have another option. I'm from Venezuela, and I don't know if you know a little bit of what's going on there, but we've had the highest drop in GDP in the history of the world, more than 50%. We've had the highest migration in the history of our continent. I think we're upwards of 10% of the population or 20% of the population has left the country. And last year we had 1,000,000% inflation. And I know that's hard to grasp, but that means that every second, the price of something, it's going up. Every second. So I had no other option. I'm an introvert, I don't like talking to people, I didn't know the language, I didn't know anything about business, but I had no other choice. So if I was able to do it and build a successful business, I'm sure that you all here, with the help that you're getting from the short program and the support that you're getting together, are going to be able to do it. If you want to learn a bit more about me, you can go to my website. At the end, I'll share it with you. Now let's get into the topic. One of the things that happens is that when we're a business owner, we tend to forget what it is to be a client. How many times you're a business owner and you think, oh, I'm just going to put this ad, somebody's going to click and they're going to buy it. And we forget that we don't do that. You just don't see an ad. In fact, how many people click ad nowadays? I think it's less than 10% of the traffic comes through an ad. You usually buy because somebody recommended to you, or you see that a friend had a good experience. So it's important that we think about the different buying experiences. And that's why I add that unknown step before the consideration. Because that step is going to be different depending on the product or service that you're offering. For example, the way you go from unknown to awareness when you're going to make a $50 purchase is different than when you're going to make a $1,000 purchase. Think about for a second about the last time you spent $50 or went somewhere to eat. How was that process? Maybe you picked the place that you knew, or you just pulled up your phone, searched for food, and maybe that was it, right? Now, what about when you're going to make say a $1,000 purchase or maybe a car? You take a little bit more time, right? Nobody searches car, Toyota, or whatever brand, and like, oh yeah, this is a car, click, buy, just because of an ad, right? You go to the dealer, you negotiate, you go back and forth. So those steps are very different than a $50 purchase. And now, what about something that you had no idea at all that it was a product of a service? One example, about a year ago, I ruptured my Achilles tendon. I didn't know that there were particular doctors that just are surgeons for feet. And imagine not knowing that that exists, and you go to the doctor and then they recommend a specialist, and you have no idea how to evaluate, how to make this purchase. And again, it's important, it's your health, and this is something that I didn't know it even existed. And it might have happened to you that you had to purchase a product or a service that you had no idea that it existed. So what I want to do now is we're going to take about 5 minutes, we're going to take a small break, and I want you to think about those 3 scenarios, and as much as you can recall, I want you to write the steps of a $50 purchase or less. I want you to write the steps that you took, right? Ask a friend, go online, whatever that is, all the way up to purchasing. And then if you talk to somebody about it, then add that step. So that's funnel number 1. Then I want you to go over the steps of funnel number 2, maybe a purchase that was significant for you. It could be $500, $1,000, a car, a house, whatever that was that you took a little bit more time. Think about that funnel. What was the process, right? Searching, asking a realtor, going to 1 dealer, 3 dealers, whatever that process was for you. And then I want you to do the same with something that you had no idea it existed and you had to make a purchase. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. Whenever we ring the bell, just know that we'll be starting again. Okay. Well, as you can see, those funnels are very different depending on the situation, right? That just gives you an idea of the different things that you can do. In an ideal scenario, at the beginning, when you're starting your business, all you're doing is sales. You just have to go out there and talk to people, and the funnel is going to be mainly dependent on you. But ideally, at some point, you start implementing different things. Ideally, at some point, some clients are talking about you, and that becomes a funnel for you, the referral funnel. Some people are just going to come because they hear about your business. Ideally, you also keep doing sell things. Maybe you're doing presentations, maybe you're going to events or conferences. Another funnel could be the online funnel. And you're going to spend different amount of money in these different activities depending on the types of clients that you're getting from these activities, right? Another funnel could be just doing blogs online or videos, because people are going to see your blogs and your videos, and that's just going to become another route that helps you get clients. Now, it's important that we think about the customer journey because it's going to be different depending on the clients. And I want you to think a little bit outside the box. A customer journey it's just not clicks, it's just not downloading and lead magnets. It's way more than that. It's just the experience that your client has from unknown to awareness. And I'll give you an example of a restaurant that has $0 for advertising, yet they are widely successful. This is what they do. It's a fast food restaurant. When you go, you have to make a line, you purchase in the register. After you make your order, they shuffle a small deck of cards, they put it face down in the counter, and they say, pick a card. If you get the Joker, the meal is free. Imagine how powerful that is, right? Imagine how powerful it would be with all that show, exciting, you get the Joker. You're probably going to scream and you're going to tell everybody, you can't believe this restaurant. I got the Joker, it was free, we got to go there again. Now, that becomes an internet warrior, right? Somebody that's going to just talk about you and share the experience with everybody. But now let's go on the other side. What does that mean for the customer acquisition, the lifetime value, and the funnel? Think about it. The owner probably knows, first of all, how many cards I'm going to put in this deck for the probability of the Joker, right? Because if it's just 2 cards, I'm going to have to pay 50% of the meals. That's not a good business. So he probably adds, 10, 15 cards, so it's 10% or less. And then he probably knows on the average, because it's a fast food restaurant, people probably spend, $10 per meal, $15 per meal, and the average group is 4 people. So $60 is the average payment that I'm going to have to make if it's a free meal, and I get, 100 clients per day, it's $1,600. And he knows that's his budget for marketing. It's not ads, it's not business cards, it's not events, it's just, I'm going to give free meals, and that's what's going to help people go from unknown to internet warrior. Think about it, right? And it's a complete different funnel because they spend that money, somebody gets a Joker, they go home and they go out and they talk about it, and then they bring a new friend, and now they're unknown, and they're going to go and hopefully at some point get the experience. So that just tells you of another way in which you can spend your money to get people to buy your products and services. Here's another example. It's a car wash. And I don't remember exactly the city, but they have a root beer that's famous from that city. So what happens in that car wash is that anytime you go there, after they give you your car, there's always a bottle of the root beer from that town next to, in the passenger seat, right? And people are going to talk about it because they're probably super proud. Imagine us having something here related to Texas, right? Imagine, it probably doesn't make sense in the numbers, but imagine a car wash here that every time you went, they would have tickets for the Astros, the Rockets, or the Texans. You would talk about it, right? Wow, I can't believe that I got these tickets. So it's important that you start thinking about different ways in which you can reach your clients. And a great way to do this is, it's called the Airbnb Way. And this is in a podcast, in any interview that they do to the Airbnb founders, they talk about this, and you can listen to it. And they talk a little bit about what they did at the beginning of starting the business, which is going to look different than at the end. One of the things they did, for example, they were analyzing the data and they realized that the listings that were getting more renters were the ones that had good photos, because it's attractive for people. The ones that didn't have good photos, not so many renters. So what they did, these are the founders, They emailed everybody. At the beginning, they just had some apartments in New York. They emailed everybody and they said, great news, you just won a chance to get a professional photographer to go and do your photos so you can get more renters. What do you think people are gonna say, yes or no? Yes. Yes, right? You know who the professional photographers were? The founders. They got a camera, they put a little bag to look like professional photographers. Hey, nice to meet you. We're here with the professional photographers. They took pictures similar to what they've seen works. They put it online, and now they had a bigger funnel acquisition, right? So that's one thing. At the beginning, a lot of people worry about, is this gonna scale? Are we gonna be able to do this when we grow? I'm not gonna be able to service all the clients. But at the beginning, you have to do it. You have to do whatever it takes, and then you figure out how to scale it. And the second thing that they did well, that works for the funnel, and we're gonna take some time to think about this, is they thought about the extremes of the experience. So they thought, what would be the worst possible situation if you had to rent something? Well, there's no light, there's no internet, there's bed bugs, and all these worst bad things, right? Now, on the other hand, they thought about what would be the best experience. Well, the plane ticket is free. You get to the airport and you have a bunch of people waiting for you. There's a red carpet, there's paparazzi, they're taking photos, there's a limousine, breakfast with the best chef in the world, right? It's an experience and people are gonna talk about it. So in some of these cases, the economics might not make sense for you, right? Like if they pay the plane tickets and everything, it might not make sense. But by thinking about the extremes, they started getting some really good ideas on what were the things that they could do, kind of like the professional photography that in the face of the client that looks amazing and expensive, but it's just them with a camera. So now I want us to take some time to write about how many people here already have clients in their business? And how many people are just idea stage? Okay, so for the idea stage, this is gonna be a hypothetical exercise. For those of you who have clients, I want you to think about just how, as we map that customer journey for when you were a client, I want you to, as much as possible, map that journey for a couple of clients that you remember well. How is it that they had an experience with you? And I want you to think about what are some of the things that I could add here to make them feel that they're getting special treatment. And it might be something like the professional photography. It might be something like the Joker thing where it's you just do something special. So let's take 5 minutes. I want you, number one, map your customer journey. What are the steps that some of your clients usually take when they make a purchase from your business? And then I want you to brainstorm a little bit and discuss it in the group. What are some things that you could do that are a little bit different that could be a talk trigger? Remember that the goal is for somebody to be so passionate that then they go and talk about it with somebody else. So we'll take again 5 minutes. Again, when I ring the bell, we go back to our presentation.